On October 25, 2023, in Indonesia's Limpoku's pine forest, the Gayung Bridge, an eye-catching glass-bottom walkway held up by two massive golden hands, was a hotspot for thrill-seekers and selfie enthusiasts. Suspended 10 meters above the forest floor, its transparent panels gave visitors the illusion of walking on air, making it a must-visit attraction. That Wednesday morning, 11 tourists from Cilacap, Central Java, stepped onto the bridge, ready for a scenic stroll. Everything seemed normal as they admired the breathtaking view beneath their feet, until, in a heart-stopping moment, disaster struck. At around 10 a.m., a glass panel suddenly shattered, sending 4 people plunging down. Their screams filled the forest as chaos erupted. 2 of the victims managed to grab onto the bridge's frame, hanging on for dear life, while onlookers rushed to pull them back to safety. Another tourist, who had also fallen, miraculously climbed back onto the bridge. But tragically, one victim wasn't as lucky. When rescuers reached them on the forest floor, they were already gone. The entire scene was caught on video, turning what was meant to be a fun outing into a horrifying spectacle. As investigators pieced together what had gone wrong, it became clear that this wasn't just a freak accident. It was the result of gross negligence. Months earlier, back in April 2023, serious concerns had been raised about the bridge's stability. Ikop Purnomo, chairman of the Limpoku's Pine Forest Cooperative, had warned management to inspect the structure after multiple visitors reported feeling uneasy about its safety. But instead of addressing the issue, the bridge's manager brushed it off, sending a representative to a meeting who left without even discussing the matter. No inspections, no repairs, just complete disregard for the warnings. The consequences of that inaction were now painfully clear. As the investigation deepened, local authorities sealed off the bridge as a crime scene, temporarily shutting down the entire Limpoku's pine forest for safety checks. What was once a tourist magnet had now become the center of a national scandal. The incident also reignited debate over the rising popularity of glass-bottom walkways. While these attractions offer a unique thrill, they come with serious risks if not properly maintained. Tourists step onto them, trusting that safety measures are in place. But as this tragedy proved, that trust can be dangerously misplaced. And this wasn't the first time a glass bridge had made headlines for all the wrong reasons. In 2021, a man in China was left clinging to the side of a damaged glass walkway after strong winds shattered multiple panels beneath him. Though he was rescued, the incident was a chilling reminder of the dangers posed by poorly designed or maintained structures. In the case of the Gayung Bridge, it wasn't a natural disaster that caused the collapse. It was sheer negligence. Multiple visitors had even voiced concerns on social media, yet their warnings went ignored. Critics slammed the management for failing to uphold basic safety standards, arguing that such a catastrophic failure was entirely preventable. The collapse also raised serious questions about the quality of materials used in these glass structures. When even a single panel fails, there's almost no time to react, as this tragedy proved when 4 people were affected instantly. As the investigation continues, the spotlight is now on how often such attractions are inspected and whether current safety regulations are even close to being enough. Could stricter oversight have prevented this disaster? Could the loss of life have been avoided with routine maintenance and proper risk assessments? Unfortunately, those answers have come too late for the victims. But one thing is clear: this tragedy has sparked urgent calls for tighter regulations and more rigorous inspections, especially for high-risk tourist attractions like glass walkways. While these structures offer breathtaking experiences, they should never come at the cost of safety. The Gayung Bridge disaster is a harsh reminder of what happens when warnings are ignored and lives are gambled with in the name of tourism. As authorities continue their search for accountability, one hope remains: that this serves as a wake-up call, ensuring that no more lives are lost to preventable tragedies like this. On July 18, 2023, Steve Curry, a 71-year-old retired electrician from Sunland, California, set out on what would be his final adventure in the unforgiving terrain of Death Valley National Park. Known for its scorching heat and extreme conditions, Death Valley is one of the hottest places on Earth, with temperatures frequently soaring above 100 Fahrenheit, 38 Celsius. On this particular day, the thermometer hit a brutal 121 Fahrenheit, 49 Celsius. But for Steve, the desert wasn't something to fear. It was another opportunity for adventure. An avid outdoorsman, Steve had spent years hiking, rock climbing, and mountain biking, and was no stranger to challenging terrains. He approached the desert's dangers with determination, believing that the beauty of nature was worth the effort. That morning, Steve had a conversation with a reporter from the Los Angeles Times at Zabriskie Point. He stood in the shade, casually acknowledging the intense heat but showing no signs of backing down. With sunscreen on, a sun hat shielding his face, and an unwavering resolve, Steve began his hike from Golden Canyon to Zabriskie Point, a popular trail known for its breathtaking views but also its demanding climbs. Despite the brutal heat, Steve didn't hesitate. To him, the challenge was part of the thrill. But by 3:40 p.m., tragedy struck. After completing his hike, Steve was found unresponsive near a restroom at the Golden Canyon trailhead. A fellow hiker saw him and immediately called for help. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, performing CPR and using a defibrillator in an attempt to revive him. Sadly, despite their best efforts, Steve could not be revived and was declared dead at the scene. The cause of Steve's death was linked to the extreme heat of the area, with temperatures at Furnace Creek reaching 121 degrees Fahrenheit. Experts believed the heat within the canyon itself was even more intense due to the canyon walls trapping and radiating the sun's energy. This made the already dangerous conditions even more hazardous. Steve's death was part of a larger pattern of tragic incidents that plagued national parks during the summer of 2023. Just days before, another person was found lifeless in their car in Death Valley when the air conditioning failed. A teenager in Alaska's Kenai Fjords National Park and a man in Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park also lost their lives under similar distressing conditions. Despite his experience, Steve's determination to finish the hike without accepting offers of assistance from other hikers earlier that day ultimately led to his untimely demise. His adventurous spirit, always pushing himself to keep up with younger hikers, was part of what made him who he was. But on this day, it wasn't enough to overcome the extreme heat. At home, his wife Rayma had no idea Steve was venturing out to Death Valley that day. While she didn't share his love for hiking, she always supported his outdoor pursuits. After Steve didn't return that evening, Rayma grew worried. It wasn't until 2 days later that she received the heartbreaking news from the coroner's office. Reflecting on their nearly 30 years of marriage, Rayma described Steve as a warm, adventurous person with a deep connection to nature. She could never have imagined that his passion for the outdoors would lead to such a tragic end. Steve's passing occurred during a severe heat wave that had been gripping the southwestern United States for weeks. Death Valley's temperatures had been regularly surpassing 110 Fahrenheit, creating perilous conditions even for experienced hikers. Despite warnings from the National Park Service advising against strenuous activities during peak heat, many visitors still underestimated the dangers. Though Steve had taken some precautions, wearing sunscreen, carrying water, and dressing appropriately, the intensity of the heat proved overwhelming. When the body's core temperature exceeds 104 Fahrenheit, 40 Celsius, heat-related illness can set in rapidly, particularly in a place like Death Valley, where the environment is as hostile as it is beautiful. Steve's story is a somber reminder of nature's unpredictable power, no matter how prepared you think you are. Even a seasoned adventurer like Steve couldn't escape the desert's brutal grasp. On July 25, 2019, the world lost a bright young soul in a heartbreaking and deeply unsettling way. Alana Cutland, a 19-year-old Cambridge University student, met a tragic fate when she fell from a small plane into the dense, untamed jungles of Madagascar. What was supposed to be an incredible research adventure turned into an unimaginable nightmare. Alana was not your average college student, This second-year natural sciences whiz from Milton Keynes, England, was a lover of nature, a fearless explorer, and an independent spirit with a deep passion for discovering the unknown. She had set off on a solo research expedition to Madagascar with an ambitious goal: to study a rare species of crustaceans. Self-funded and determined, she embraced every challenge that came her way with an infectious enthusiasm that inspired those around her. Her family and friends described her as intelligent, adventurous, and always eager to learn more about the world. Her trip to Madagascar was a testament to her dedication and curiosity. She had carefully planned a 6-week study in Anjajavi, a remote and biodiverse region perfect for her research. However, her journey took an alarming turn after only 8 days. Something was wrong. Reports suggest that Alana started experiencing severe mental and physical distress, paranoia, confusion, and disorientation. The likely culprit? A reaction to doxycycline, an anti-malarial medication known to cause psychological side effects in rare cases. Her once sharp and inquisitive mind seemed to be battling something far beyond her control. As her condition worsened, her deeply concerned parents, back home in England, began receiving bizarre and unsettling phone calls from their daughter. Worried out of their minds and unable to help from thousands of miles away, they made the difficult decision to bring her home early. A private plane was arranged to take her from Anjajavi to the capital, Antananarivo, where she would catch a flight back to England. Accompanying her on this crucial flight were Ruth Johnson, a trusted family friend, and the pilot, Mahefa Tahina Rantoanina. On the morning of July 25th, the small Cessna aircraft took off, carrying 3 passengers. But what should have been a simple flight to safety quickly spiraled into chaos. Alana, visibly unwell and restless, unbuckled her seatbelt mid-flight and reached for the door. Panic erupted. Both Ruth and the pilot desperately tried to stop her, struggling against her distress and confusion. Despite their frantic efforts, Alana managed to break free, and in a moment that defied belief, she fell from the plane at an altitude of 3,700 feet. Disappearing into the vast, unforgiving jungle below. A massive search operation was launched, but with thick forests, treacherous terrain, and an abundance of wildlife, the odds of finding her were slim. Days passed, and hope dwindled. But then, a local tribe made a grim discovery. Alana's remains were found, bringing at least a small measure of closure to her grieving loved ones. Her family, devastated beyond words, remembered her as a brilliant and independent young woman with a zest for life and an unrelenting passion for knowledge. The investigation that followed raised pressing questions about the potential dangers of anti-malarial medications. Could doxycycline have triggered Alana's tragic reaction? Her uncle, Lester Riley, believed so. He explained how her last phone calls had been filled with confusion and incoherence, suggesting a severe psychological reaction to the medication. Experts weighed in, acknowledging that while such side effects were rare, they could be devastating. Alana's case became a chilling reminder of the unseen mental health risks that medications can pose, especially for young travelers navigating unfamiliar environments. Beyond the medical concerns, Alana's story also underscored the immense psychological toll of isolation and stress. Though she was passionate about her research, the loneliness of being in a remote location, coupled with her deteriorating mental state, may have magnified her distress. Her family's attempts to support her were limited by distance, leaving them helpless as they tried to reach out through phone calls alone. Her tragic passing shed light on the importance of mental health awareness for travelers. It emphasized the need for better safety measures, proper medication monitoring, and increased support for those experiencing distress in foreign lands. Alana's family strongly believed that her actions were not deliberate, but rather the result of an overwhelming and uncontrollable medical condition. To those who knew and loved her, Alana was much more than the victim of an unfortunate tragedy. She was a vibrant, intelligent, and courageous young woman with a boundless curiosity for the world. Her untimely death was a heartbreaking loss, but her legacy serves as a powerful reminder of the need to prioritize mental health, especially for those embarking on challenging and adventurous journeys. Her story continues to resonate, urging people to take precautions, stay informed, and look out for one another when exploring the world. Relentless, Colombia, a dreamland for paragliders, where the sky is a playground and adventure is just a launch away. The town is famous for its stunning landscapes, ideal weather conditions, and the thrill of soaring over the picturesque Valle del Cauca. On January 21, 2025, the Agapanela launch site was buzzing with excitement. Paragliders from around the world had gathered, their colorful wings decorating the sky like confetti at a celebration. Among them was 38-year-old Paulina Biskup, a Polish adventurer who had made Dublin her home. Paulina was the kind of person who couldn't resist the call of adventure. A Trinity College graduate, she had built a life in Ireland, but her spirit belonged to the open skies and distant horizons. Her love for travel, exploration, and adrenaline-pumping experiences made paragliding the perfect thrill for her. She had come to Colombia with her boyfriend and friends, eager to experience the magic of flight in one of the world's most famous paragliding destinations. Though there was a major paragliding event happening nearby, Paulina and her group were not part of the competition. They were simply there for the joy of flying, to experience that indescribable rush of floating above the world. While her boyfriend and friends launched from a different site, Paulina took off from Agapanela, gliding effortlessly over the breathtaking Colombian landscape. The wind was strong, the sky was clear, and for a moment it felt like pure, unfiltered freedom. For a while, everything was perfect. The wind in her face, the vast expanse of green valleys below, and the exhilarating sensation of weightlessness. There's something magical about paragliding, a sense of defying gravity, of becoming one with the wind. Paulina, with her fearless spirit, was in her element, enjoying every second of her airborne adventure. But, as any experienced paraglider knows, the skies can be unpredictable. In a matter of seconds, the dream turned into a nightmare. Powerful gusts of wind suddenly disrupted the calm, sending Paulina's parachute into a chaotic dance. The once friendly breeze transformed into a force of nature, pulling her off course and making control nearly impossible. The joy of flight quickly turned into a desperate struggle. Paulina fought to stabilize her chute, but the turbulent winds had other plans. Her parachute twisted, the cords tangled, and gravity began to reclaim its hold. In those harrowing moments, what had started as a breathtaking adventure became a terrifying descent. Despite her efforts, the powerful winds proved too much. In a tragic turn of events, Paulina's flight came to an abrupt and devastating end. The accident sent shockwaves through the paragliding community, a stark reminder of the risks that come with the thrill of the sport. The very skies that had given her so much joy had, in an instant, become the setting for an unthinkable tragedy. News of the accident spread quickly, leaving those who knew Paulina heartbroken. Her adventurous spirit, her love for life, and her courage to embrace the unknown made her someone who truly lived every moment to the fullest. Though she is gone, her memory remains in the stories of her adventures, in the places she explored, and in the skies she loved so much. Relentless, for all its beauty and thrill, now carries the memory of that fateful day, a reminder that while adventure is exhilarating, nature always holds the final say. On July 27, 2023, Muhammad Hassan, a 27-year-old porter from Pakistan, found himself in a life-or-death struggle on Karakoram 2, K2, the world's second highest and one of its deadliest peaks. K2 is infamous for its brutal weather, steep ascents, and unpredictable avalanches, challenging even the most experienced climbers. But Hassan wasn't there for adventure or glory. He was there to provide for his wife, 3 children, and elderly grandmother. He had recently joined the Layla Peak expedition as a part of the rope-fixing crew, a high-risk but essential role in any major climb. His task was to secure ropes along the ascent, making it safer for climbers following behind. That night, at around 2:30 a.m., he joined dozens of climbers navigating the bottleneck, a notorious section just below the Great Serac, where ice falls and avalanches are constant threats. Unlike the elite climbers around him, Hassan lacked proper high-altitude training and had inadequate gear. Fellow climbers and Sherpas had warned him about the dangers, but he pressed on, determined to fulfill his duty. At some point during the climb, Hassan slipped and fell, leaving him trapped upside down at over 8,000 meters, 26,000 feet above sea level. The freezing temperatures, lack of oxygen, and sheer exhaustion quickly took their toll. To make matters worse, his oxygen mask broke, leaving him barely able to breathe. His condition deteriorated rapidly, and soon he was unable to move or call for help. As the night passed, dozens of climbers continued ascending past him, some attempting to break records, others chasing personal milestones, but almost none stopping to assist. Only 2 individuals, Tenjin Sherpa and Gabriel Tarso, made an effort to help. Tenjin tried to keep Hassan conscious, but as conditions worsened and his own oxygen supply dwindled, he was forced to abandon the effort. Tarso, a cameraman, also struggled with his own breathing and had no choice but to move on. Despite Hassan still being alive for hours after his fall, no coordinated rescue effort was made. Meanwhile, climbers stepped over his motionless body, determined to reach the summit at any cost. The harsh reality of high-altitude mountaineering became painfully clear when Norwegian climber Kristin Harila, who was on a record-setting quest to summit all 14 peaks above 8,000 meters, reached the top of K2 later that day. She later claimed that her team had tried to help, but found the conditions too dangerous. However, the fact that her team continued their ascent and celebrated at the summit sparked widespread criticism. Austrian mountaineer Philipp Flamig later released footage showing Hassan still alive, further fueling the outrage. Many questioned whether Hassan would have received help if he had been a Western climber instead of a local porter. German climber Wilhelm Steindl, who had turned back earlier due to unsafe conditions, condemned the lack of action and later started a fundraiser for Hassan's family, which raised over $170,000 to support his widow and children. The backlash was so severe that Layla Peak Expeditions, the company that had hired Hassan, was banned for 2 years due to negligence. Beyond the tragedy itself, Hassan's death exposed deep flaws in the world of extreme mountaineering. While K2's conditions make rescues nearly impossible, his case raised ethical concerns about the priorities of climbers and the systemic biases faced by local porters. Porters are often the unsung heroes of high-altitude expeditions, risking their lives to enable others to achieve their dreams. Yet, they receive far less recognition, support, and protection. His story has sparked a global conversation about the moral responsibilities of climbers and the need for better safety regulations. Though K2 claimed his life, Hassan's story has left a lasting impact, serving as a call for greater humanity, accountability, and change in the dangerous world of mountaineering. Jamaica, with its sun-kissed beaches, pulsating reggae beats, and endless supply of tropical drinks, was the perfect getaway for 53-year-old Timothy Southern from Lichfield, Staffordshire. In May 2022, he landed at the Royal Decameron Club Caribbean in St. Lucia, and with his family, ready to soak up the warm island vibes. Days were spent basking in the sun, dipping in the ocean, and feasting on local delicacies, while evenings buzzed with music, laughter, and an array of colorful cocktails. One night, Timothy, feeling the island spirit, found himself in the middle of a drinking challenge with 2 fellow guests. The mission? Conquer all 21 cocktails on the menu in one sitting. Having already indulged in brandy and beer earlier in the day, one might think he'd call it a night, but the thrill of the challenge was just too tempting. The drinks flowed, the toasts kept coming, and the energy was infectious. Not typically a heavy drinker, Timothy dove into the challenge with enthusiasm, but after 12 cocktails, the mix of booze, heat, and sheer excitement began taking its toll. He started feeling wobbly, yet the buzz of the evening kept him going. Eventually, reality hit hard. He waved the white flag, said his goodbyes, and staggered back to his room, the resort's palm trees swaying, or was that just the alcohol? His family, unaware of just how much he had consumed, assumed he was simply exhausted from a long day. But once in his room, things took a turn for the worse. That lightheaded tipsiness transformed into a full-blown emergency. His stomach rebelled, nausea kicked in, and he struggled to stay coherent. In a desperate attempt to feel better, he tried to force himself to vomit but quickly found himself in trouble. A family member, sensing something was seriously wrong, rushed to his aid, placing him in the recovery position. Panic set in as his condition worsened. His breathing became shallow, his skin turned cold and clammy, and his family, now in full crisis mode, pleaded for help. A nurse finally arrived, but shockingly, no ambulance had been called. As precious minutes slipped away, the family begged for action. When the nurse finally began chest compressions, it was too late. Timothy's pulse was weak, his body unresponsive, and their worst fears became reality. He was gone. The cause of death? Acute gastroenteritis due to excessive alcohol consumption, a clinical explanation for an utterly heartbreaking loss. The Southern family's dream vacation had turned into an unthinkable nightmare. Their grief was compounded by anger, believing the resort had failed them, not only by allowing such reckless drinking but also by its delayed response. And as if fate hadn't been cruel enough, their travel insurance didn't cover repatriation, forcing them to start a GoFundMe to bring Timothy home. A paradise lost, in every sense of the word. On September 15, 2024, in the heart of Naples, Italy, Chiara Giaconis was celebrating her 30th birthday in true style. A rising star in the luxury fashion world, she had built a dream career managing 15 Prada stores across France, Monaco, and Belgium. Living in Paris, she had worked with prestigious brands like Moncler, Givenchy, and Christian Louboutin. This trip to Naples with her boyfriend, Livio Rousseau, was meant to be a special milestone, a perfect blend of romance and relaxation before heading back to their fast-paced lives. That afternoon, the couple took a final stroll through the lively Spanish quarters, soaking in the vibrant energy of Naples. Chiara carried a backpack and a shopping bag while Livio wheeled their luggage through the narrow streets. It was just another sunny day in one of the city's busiest neighborhoods, until, in an instant, everything changed. As they walked beneath a historic building on Via Santa Anna di Palazzo, a heavy decorative statue from the third floor plummeted down without warning. The 2-kilogram piece, depicting an ancient pagan deity, struck Chiara directly on the head, sending her crashing to the ground. Surveillance footage captured the horrifying moment as Livio, momentarily frozen in shock, dropped everything and rushed to her side, his desperate cries for help echoing through the street. Chaos erupted as bystanders gathered, some trying to assist, others watching in stunned disbelief. Emergency services arrived swiftly, rushing Chiara to Ospedale Pellegrini before transferring her to Ospedale del Mare, where doctors fought to save her life. But the injuries were catastrophic. Despite their best efforts, Chiara passed away on September 17th, leaving behind a devastated family, heartbroken friends, and colleagues reeling from the sudden loss. The news sent shockwaves through the fashion industry, where Chiara was admired for her talent, drive, and undeniable charm. Her father, Gianfranco Jaconis, a respected condominium administrator in Padua, publicly thanked the doctors who had done all they could, even as he struggled with unimaginable grief. Meanwhile, local authorities launched an urgent investigation into how such a tragedy could have happened. Initial reports suggested the statue's fall might not have been a freak accident. Investigators suspected it had either been dropped or thrown from the balcony, possibly by children playing inside the apartment. Police, working alongside the Naples prosecutor's office, opened a case for involuntary manslaughter, questioning the apartment's occupants and examining whether negligence or something more sinister was to blame. With multiple people, including minors, present at the time, authorities were left to untangle the circumstances behind the fatal fall. In the days following Chiara's passing, Naples became a city in mourning. The Spanish quarters, normally bustling with life, fell into a solemn hush as residents, tourists, and local officials gathered for a candlelight vigil in her honor. Naples Mayor Gaetano Manfredi expressed his condolences, calling the incident a deep sorrow, while Veneto's governor, Luca Zaia, reflected on how everyone had clung to hope for Chiara's survival. But beyond the grief, the tragedy raised urgent questions about public safety and the aging infrastructure of Naples' historic buildings. The city, renowned for its rich history and architectural beauty, now found itself under scrutiny for the potential dangers lurking in its picturesque but often poorly maintained structures. Residents began demanding accountability, calling for stricter inspections and maintenance regulations to prevent another senseless loss. Chiara Giaconis had spent years building a life many could only dream of, traveling the world, shaping the future of luxury fashion, and embracing every challenge with grace and determination. She was living proof that hard work and passion could turn ambition into reality. But in a matter of seconds, a completely preventable accident cut her journey heartbreakingly short. While questions remain about what truly caused the statue to fall, one thing is certain: this tragedy should never have happened. Chiara's story is now a painful reminder of how fragile life can be, but those who loved her refuse to let her memory fade. Through their grief, they will continue to honor her legacy, one of ambition, resilience, and an unshakable love for the beauty in life. Desiree Gibbon, a thrill-seeking 26-year-old from Queens, New York, set off on an adventure to Jamaica in November 2017. Staying at her grandmother's hotel in Montego Bay, she was more than just a tourist. She was a model, an aspiring filmmaker, and a globetrotter with big dreams of heading to film school in Europe. Montego Bay's lively streets and gorgeous beaches provided the perfect break from the chaotic pace of New York, offering both comfort and opportunity. Determined to make the most of her time there, she even sought a bartending job to help fund her future while uncovering the island's hidden gems. Her enthusiasm and open-minded nature led her to cross paths with all kinds of people, some friendly, others possibly dangerous. Despite whispers of certain areas, like Anchovy, being less than safe, Desiree either didn't notice or chose to ignore the warnings. Then, on November 26, 2017, she walked out of her grandmother's hotel to meet someone and vanished. The next morning, the worst possible news arrived. Locals in Anchovy discovered her body hidden in the bushes. Her throat had been slashed, her face bruised, a brutal and senseless attack that sent shockwaves through the community. Jamaica, already grappling with trust in its law enforcement, now faced another tragedy that seemed to slip through the cracks of justice. Desiree's devastated family was left struggling with the unthinkable. How could this happen in a place she had felt so at home? Her mother, Andrea, couldn't shake the horrifying thought that the killer was someone her daughter had trusted. Desiree had always been cautious, aware of the risks of traveling alone, yet it seemed her kindness had been betrayed in the worst possible way. The investigation was agonizingly slow. Overwhelmed authorities found little evidence, no immediate leads, and no suspects. As frustration mounted, rumors swirled. Was it a crime of passion, a robbery gone wrong, or something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface of paradise? Andrea, desperate for closure, was convinced her daughter had been deliberately lured away. The missing purse, money, and ID only reinforced the belief that it wasn't random. Weeks turned into months, and the case grew colder. Authorities released minimal details, citing an ongoing investigation, but progress was painfully slow. Desiree's family, stuck in an agonizing limbo, kept demanding answers, but their pleas seemed to fade into silence. The harsh reality set in. In a place where crime often met indifference and resources were stretched thin, finding justice felt impossible. Desiree's story became a chilling, cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the most beautiful places, danger can lurk beneath the surface. Her dreams of film school and making a name for herself were stolen in an instant, leaving behind only heartbreak and the unanswered question of who took her life. It was August 9, 1989, in the Stubai Alps of Austria, and Duncan McPherson, a 23-year-old former hockey player from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, was about to embark on a solo adventure. The weather was foggy, the slopes were eerily quiet, and Duncan had one thing on his mind: trying snowboarding for the first time. Now, if there was one thing Duncan was known for, it was his fearless, tough-as-nails attitude. His nickname? McPherson. He played junior hockey for the Saskatoon Blades and was drafted 20th overall by the New York Islanders in the 1984 NHL entry draft. But fate had other plans. Injuries took their toll, and by 23, his hockey career was over. Without a college degree and unsure of his next move, he was at a crossroads. Then, out of the blue, an opportunity arrived. Ron Dixon, a Scottish businessman, invited him to coach and play for the Tayside Tigers, a minor league team. Excited for a fresh start, Duncan decided to take a European road trip before reporting for duty. He planned to visit old friends, see new places, and soak in some adventure. On August 9th, Duncan borrowed a car from his former teammate George Pitt and drove to the Stubai Alps. He checked into a hostel, eager to hit the slopes the next day. At the resort, he chatted with a worker named Walter, explaining his plans. Despite the poor weather and near-zero visibility, Duncan was determined to snowboard. That was the last time anyone saw him. When he failed to show up for his scheduled coaching meeting in Dundee on August 12th, his family and friends panicked. Austrian authorities, however, weren't too concerned. Maybe he changed his plans? Maybe he ran off? But his family knew something was wrong. 6 weeks later, his red Opel hatchback was found in the resort parking lot, untouched, with his passport and belongings still inside. No one had seen or heard from him, and the trail went cold. For years, his parents, Bob and Linda, searched relentlessly, making 9 trips to Austria, hiring private investigators and pleading for media coverage. But Duncan had vanished without a trace. Fast forward 14 years to 2003. A worker at the Stubai Glacier Resort noticed a glove sticking out of the ice on the Schaufelferner Glacier. When he pulled on it, a frozen body surfaced, completely encased in ice. It was Duncan McPherson. The glacier had preserved his remains, and his clothing and wallet confirmed his identity. But this wasn't a simple case of a snowboarder getting lost. His broken snowboard was still strapped to his back, and his body showed brutal injuries: a shattered femur, severed limbs, multiple broken bones. These weren't injuries typical of a fall. The initial theory? Duncan fell into a crevasse and succumbed to his injuries. But Canadian pathologists had another idea. A snowcat, a massive machine used to groom ski slopes, might have accidentally run him over in the fog. The damage to his body and snowboard seemed to match that scenario. But if that was the case, why was his body buried for 14 years? Had someone tried to hide what happened? As investigators dug deeper, things didn't add up. The resort had claimed they returned his snowboard years earlier, yet there it was, still attached to his back. His car sat in the parking lot for weeks, yet authorities never properly investigated it. Was this just incompetence, or was there a cover-up to protect the resort's reputation? Even glacier movement theories didn't fully explain his severe injuries. More than 30 years later, the truth remains elusive. Was it a tragic accident, or did someone cover up what really happened? Duncan's family still searches for answers, but many questions remain unanswered. Officially, it's labeled an accident, but the mystery of Duncan McPherson's disappearance lingers, a haunting reminder of how easily the truth can be buried beneath the ice. On October 18, 2024, off the coast of Pulau Masukut Island in Indonesia, Julia Manfrini was doing what she loved most, surfing the waves with her close friends Alexandre Riba and Massimo Ferro. At 36, Julia had built a life around adventure, co-founding A Wave Travel, a surf travel agency, and making the Mentawai Islands her second home. Originally a professional snowboarder, she had long traded snow for the sea, chasing waves across the globe. That morning, as the trio surfed near the southern part of Cut Island, something completely unimaginable happened. Out of nowhere, a swordfish launched out of the water, striking Julia in the chest with its razor-sharp bill, piercing 5 centimeters deep. Her screams cut through the crash of the waves, sending her friends into instant action. They fought to keep her afloat, But the ocean wasn't making it easy. Battling the swells, they managed to get her back to shore, where a doctor in the group desperately tried to save her, but the injury was catastrophic. The swordfish's strike had landed dangerously close to her heart, and despite all efforts, Julia was unresponsive. She was rushed to the Pepe Pasakiat Tailelu Health Center, but there was nothing more that could be done. She was gone, leaving behind a stunned and heartbroken community. News of Julia's tragic death rippled through the global surfing world like a rogue wave. This was the kind of accident no one could have seen coming. Swordfish attacks on humans are virtually unheard of, more like something out of a bizarre ocean myth than real life. In fact, the only other similar case on record was in a 2007 report from the Asian Journal of Surgery, where a man was fatally struck while fishing. But for a surfer, this was a first, and it made the loss even more shocking. Julia wasn't just another surfer. She was the heart and soul of the community. Her co-founder at A Wave Travel, James Coulston, poured his grief into a tribute, calling her the driving force behind their company. He spoke of her boundless enthusiasm, her fearless spirit, and the way she lived every moment with passion. Social media was flooded with tributes from her 22,000 Instagram followers, all remembering her as a bright, adventurous force of nature. Fabio Giulivi, the mayor of her hometown, Venaria Reale in Italy, called her loss devastating. But to those who knew her best, Julia wasn't just a talented surfer. She was a mentor, a friend, a connector of people, someone who could turn strangers into family through her love for the ocean. The Mentawai Islands, with their legendary waves and untouched beauty, were where Julia felt most alive. She had always spoken about her deep connection to the sea, never shying away from its dangers. She especially loved Naz, a wild and remote surf spot where she could spend endless hours chasing the perfect wave. For her, surfing wasn't just a sport, it was a way of life, a communion with nature, a pursuit of something bigger than herself. Her death, as surreal and tragic as it was, only underscored the unpredictable power of the ocean. Why did the swordfish leap? Could it have been avoided? No one will ever know. But those closest to Julia aren't dwelling on the unanswerable questions. Instead, they are holding on to the legacy she left behind, the adventurous spirit, the infectious energy, the courage to embrace life's wildest moments. Julia Manfrini's story is a reminder that life, like the ocean, is both breathtakingly beautiful and wildly unpredictable. She lived on her own terms, chasing waves, building a community, and spreading joy wherever she went. While her passing leaves an unfillable void, her memory is carried forward by the people she inspired. Her friends, family, and fellow surfers will remember her not for how she left, but for how she lived, with passion, courage, and an endless love for the sea. In the rhythm of the waves and the laughter of those she touched, Julia Manfrini will always be there, a fearless woman who rode life's currents with grace and left behind a legacy that will never fade. It was a Saturday afternoon in late March 2024, and Talon and Wyatt Brooks, two adventurous brothers from El Dorado, Northern California, were gearing up for one of their favorite outdoor traditions. At 21 and 18, they were passionate about nature and loved hiking the hills near Georgetown, searching for deer antler sheds, a hobby they enjoyed every spring. Talon, the older brother, worked with his dad painting houses and chopping firewood. He had a love for fishing and playing guitar, while Wyatt, training to be a firefighter, was a baseball enthusiast and a skilled bow hunter. Exploring the wilderness together had strengthened their bond over the years, making them a true brotherly duo of the great outdoors. But what started as a normal, peaceful day in the woods soon took a horrific turn, one they never could have prepared for. As the brothers walked along a remote dirt road, their quiet afternoon was shattered when they spotted a mountain lion creeping toward them. Knowing the risks, they followed all the safety protocols, making themselves look larger, shouting, even throwing a backpack to scare it off. But this lion was unusually aggressive. Instead of retreating, it charged straight at them, setting off a terrifying battle for survival. The lion pounced on Wyatt first, pinning him down and biting his face. He He fought back with everything he had, and Talon, without hesitation, jumped in to rescue his brother, hitting the lion to get it off. Wyatt managed to break free and briefly gained the upper hand, but the lion was relentless. It shifted its focus to Talon, locking onto him and gripping his throat. Wyatt, despite his severe injuries, fought desperately to save his brother, but the mountain lion wouldn't let go. Realizing he couldn't overpower the beast alone, Wyatt, covered in blood and barely holding on, made the painful decision to run for help. Wyatt stumbled to their car, his face and neck torn apart, and called 911, his voice trembling with urgency. After making the call, he rushed back to the scene, but Talon and the lion were gone. When authorities arrived, they found Talon's lifeless body nearby. The mountain lion was still there but fled when deputies fired warning shots. Tragically, Talon did not survive. Wildlife officials later tracked down and euthanized the lion, confirming through DNA analysis that it was the same animal responsible for the attack. The Brooks family was left devastated. They had lost Talon, a kind-hearted, nature-loving soul, but they were grateful that Wyatt had survived. He was rushed to the hospital with severe facial and neck injuries, requiring reconstructive surgery. Despite the trauma, Wyatt's resilience never wavered, and he is now focused on healing and continuing his firefighter training. This tragic event has ignited debates about California's wildlife management policies, particularly Proposition 117, a 1990 law that classifies mountain lions as a specially protected species. The brothers' uncle, Malcolm Brooks, has spoken out, arguing that while protecting wildlife is important, human safety must also be considered, especially as urban expansion pushes people and predators into closer contact. Experts emphasize that fatal mountain lion attacks are extremely rare, with this being the first in California since 2004 and the first in El Dorado County since 1994. Typically, mountain lions avoid humans, but this particular 90-pound male acted unpredictably. While researchers continue to study mountain lion behavior, the Brooks family is left mourning the loss of Talon, determined to raise awareness and advocate for better safety measures. Meanwhile, Wyatt, still healing physically and emotionally, is determined to honor his brother's memory. The Brooks family, though deeply grieving, stands proud of Talon and Wyatt's bravery, cherishing the memories of their inseparable bond and love for the great outdoors. On September 19, 2019, Stephen Weber Jr., a 40-year-old from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was living his best life on a dreamy vacation with his girlfriend, Kenesha Antoine. The couple had splurged on a once-in-a-lifetime experience at the ultra-luxurious Manta Resort off the coast of Pemba Island, Tanzania. Their underwater cabin, a jaw-dropping $1,700 a night stay, offered front-row seats to the wonders of marine life, like living inside a giant, fancy fish tank. But this wasn't just any getaway. It was meant to be a milestone in their love story. Stephen, a guy known for his adventurous and romantic streak, had a grand plan up his sleeve. He was about to pop the big question in the most unforgettable way possible, an underwater proposal. With a handwritten note tucked safely in a Ziploc bag and an engagement ring in hand, he set the stage for a moment, straight out of a movie. The note? Pure romance. He joked that he couldn't hold his breath long enough to list all the reasons he loved Kenesha, but assured her that his love for her grew stronger every day. Then, with a flip of the note, he dropped the bombshell. "Will you marry me?" Inside the cozy cabin, Kenesha eagerly waited, capturing the whole thing on video. As Stephen swam up to the glass, grinning like a kid with a secret, he held up the note and then the ring. She laughed, thrilled by the surprise, but just moments after, Stephen swam out of view, never to return. Minutes passed, then more. The excitement turned into worry. He should have been back by now. Kenesha, now panicking, tried to contact the resort staff. No luck. Desperate, she flagged down passing boaters for help. When Stephen was finally brought to the surface, he had a faint pulse, but despite CPR efforts, he didn't make it. Kenesha's heartbreak spilled onto Facebook, where she shared the gut-wrenching reality. Stephen never got to hear her say yes. She reminisced about their magical trip, how he had gushed over their once-in-a-lifetime experience. His sudden passing left everyone in shock. Stephen was an experienced swimmer, familiar with snorkeling, making the tragedy even harder to comprehend. His family, especially his sister Mandy, questioned if there was more to the story. How could such a confident swimmer not make it back? The Manta Resort released a statement confirming that Stephen drowned while freediving outside the cabin. The water was calm, the depth around 32 feet, and yet something went terribly wrong. Despite lingering questions, one truth remains. Stephen spent his final moments doing something he loved for someone he deeply cherished. His family and friends, though devastated, take solace in the joy he brought to so many lives. Kenesha, heartbroken but grateful for their time together, holds on to the memories of the man she was ready to call her husband. His tragic yet touching story continues to remind people of the fragility of life and the power of love. It was September 6, 1988, in Kenya's Masai Mara Game Reserve, a breathtaking wilderness teeming with wildlife and, tragically, the site of one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries. Julie Ward, a 28-year-old British wildlife photographer from Bury St. Edmunds, Suffolk, had been on an adventure across Africa for 7 months, capturing the raw beauty of the continent. She was just a week away from returning home, but fate had a cruel twist in store. The day before, her vehicle broke down while traveling with her Australian friend, Dr. Glenn Burns. He set off for Nairobi to get help, while Julie stayed at the Mara Serena Lodge. By morning, with her car repaired, she drove to Sand River Camp to collect her camping gear, and then vanished. Silence stretched for days. Concerned and desperate, her father, John Ward, flew to Kenya on September 13th to search for her. What he found was every parent's worst nightmare. Julie's vehicle lay abandoned in a gully near a river, and nearby, her remains were discovered, burned and dismembered near a fire. This gruesome revelation ignited John Ward's relentless, decades-long quest for justice. At first, Kenyan officials came up with wild explanations. Maybe a lion attack, maybe lightning, but John wasn't buying it. His investigation uncovered something far darker. There were no animal bite marks, no signs of a lightning strike. Instead, forensic evidence showed Julie had been cut up with a sharp blade. A British pathologist later confirmed the worst. She had been dismembered with a machete and set on fire. John was convinced it was murder, and that someone was trying very hard to cover it up. He poured his life savings into finding the truth, spending over £2 million, making more than 100 trips to Kenya, questioning witnesses, and piecing together clues. His suspicions pointed to Jonathan Moi, son of then Kenyan President Daniel Arap Moi. According to a witness, Julie had unknowingly crossed paths with Jonathan Moi and his associates while taking photographs. The encounter allegedly turned deadly, and a cover-up was swiftly put into motion. Despite compelling evidence, no charges were ever brought against Moi or his alleged accomplices. Instead, 2 park rangers were arrested but acquitted in 1992 due to lack of evidence. Years later, in 1997, another suspect, former Chief Park Ranger Simon O. Michaela, was arrested, only to walk free in 1999. John remained convinced these men were scapegoats, while the real perpetrators sat untouched in high places. Determined not to let Julie's case fade into obscurity, John sought help from British authorities, and even MI6, hoping to force Kenyan officials to act. In 2004, a British inquest officially ruled that Julie had been unlawfully killed, calling out the Kenyan government for its blatant mishandling of the case. But while the verdict confirmed what John had known all along, it didn't bring justice. With the case still unresolved, John refused to give up. In 1991, he published a book, The Animals Are Innocent, detailing his investigation and what he believed was a systematic cover-up by the Kenyan government to protect the country's tourism industry. Then, in 2019, Jonathan Moi passed away, taking any confessions or secrets with him. The case remained frozen in time, a puzzle missing its final pieces. John kept pushing forward, But in 2023, after decades of fighting, he passed away just weeks after his wife. His tireless mission now rests in the hands of his sons, Bob and Tim, who have vowed to continue the fight. Determined to keep Julie's story alive, the Ward family is working on another book and a documentary to expose the truth once and for all. Bob, reflecting on his father's determination, described John as meticulous and unstoppable in his pursuit of justice. Though Julie's death forever altered their lives, the family has learned to channel their grief into perseverance, ensuring her memory never fades. But the haunting questions remain. Could Julie's death have been prevented? Was key evidence suppressed? Would justice have been served if the case had been properly handled? To this day, the mystery looms large, a painful reminder of how difficult it is to seek justice when powerful forces are at play. The Ward family refuses to let the case be buried in secrecy, determined to honor Julie's legacy and finally uncover the truth behind her tragic death. It was November 16, 2018, when 26-year-old John Allen Chow embarked on a mission that would change his life forever. A devoted American missionary, Chow had trained with All Nations International, a Christian organization, and was deeply passionate about sharing his faith. His dream? To reach the Sentinelese, a fiercely independent tribe living on North Sentinel Island in India's Andaman Islands. They had lived in isolation for thousands of years and were notorious for rejecting any outside contact. But despite the risks, Chow felt it was his calling to introduce them to Christianity. Chow wasn't new to the Andaman Islands. He had visited in 2015 and 2016, learning about the Sentinelese along the way. But this trip was different. This time, he wanted to meet them face to face. The Sentinelese, believed to number around 150, had a well-earned reputation for protecting their isolation, often greeting intruders with a barrage of arrows. Chow, however, was determined. He spent months preparing and hired local fishermen for $325 to take him close to the island, even though they knew it was illegal and extremely dangerous. On November 15th, Chow made his first attempt. Paddling in a kayak while the fishermen stayed behind, he approached the shore and introduced himself, saying that his name was John and that both he and Jesus loved them. The Sentinelese responded by readying their arrows. Hoping to win them over, he offered a fish. It didn't work. The tribe's hostility forced him to retreat. Not one to give up easily, Chow tried again later that day, bringing gifts like a football and more fish. The result? Another angry reaction and a hasty retreat. Frustrated but undeterred, he wrote in his journal that he was scared, but still felt called to his mission. He debated leaving, but ultimately decided he couldn't turn back. On November 16th, before making his final attempt, Chow penned a letter to his family, acknowledging the risks and asking for their forgiveness if things went wrong. He made it clear that he didn't blame the tribe or God for whatever might happen. The fishermen, waiting offshore, later reported that as Chow neared the beach, the Sentinelese attacked, shooting him with arrows before dragging his body away. They watched in horror, later recalling that the tribe appeared to bury him on the beach. Authorities confirmed Chow's death, but opted not to retrieve his remains to avoid further conflict. His mission sparked fierce debate. Some saw it as reckless, violating laws designed to protect the Sentinelese from outsiders and potential diseases. Others viewed it as a testament to his unwavering faith. His family forgave the tribe, seeing his mission as an act of sincere devotion. In the end, Chow's story serves as a powerful reminder of the tension between faith and respecting cultural boundaries, a topic that remains deeply polarizing. It was October 8, 2024, in the breathtaking wilderness of Yosemite National Park, California, where Harry Partington, a 22-year-old adventurer from Perth, Australia, set out for another exciting journey. A seasoned explorer with a passion for nature, Harry was the kind of guy who filled his social media with stunning landscapes and thrilling hiking tales. This trip to Yosemite was supposed to be just another notch in his adventure belt, a memory to cherish. Instead, it turned into an unspeakable tragedy. Harry was tackling the 4-mile trail, a 4.8-mile trek that climbs over 3,000 feet, boasting jaw-dropping views of El Capitan, Yosemite Falls, and Half Dome. While it's a bucket list-worthy hike, it's also no joke. Steep, rugged, and demanding every ounce of focus and stamina. That day, around 2:30 p.m., as Harry neared Union Point at about 6,300 feet above sea level, the weather took a nasty turn. Strong winds and light rain swept through the area, turning the trail into a hazard zone. Then, in a split second, the unimaginable happened. A massive tree, uprooted by the powerful gusts, came crashing down onto the trail. Harry, caught in its path, was tragically struck and fatally injured. Nearby, a German hiker was also hit. She survived, but her injuries were severe enough to require an emergency airlift to the hospital. Park rangers, paramedics, firefighters, and search and rescue teams sprang into action, helicopters slicing through the sky to manage the crisis. For visitors, the sight of whirring choppers and a swarm of emergency personnel was both shocking and heartbreaking. Kelly Kennedy Bentley, a tourist waiting for her family at the trailhead, described the tension in the air, feeling relieved that her loved ones were safe but deeply shaken by the nearby tragedy. The 4-mile trail was temporarily closed, and hikers were kept at a distance as responders worked. Witnesses recalled the chaos of the rescue effort, with at least 30 emergency personnel rushing to the scene. Sadly, Harry's tragic accident wasn't the only recent loss in Yosemite. Just weeks earlier, the body of Kirk Thomas Olson, a former park ranger, had been found near the Ostrander Lake Trail after being missing for 3 weeks. Incidents like these serve as stark reminders of how unpredictable the wilderness can be. Yosemite, despite its majestic beauty, has claimed over 1,300 lives since its establishment in 1890, with many hikers falling victim to unforeseen dangers. The Mariposa County Sheriff's Office announced plans for an autopsy to confirm Harry's exact cause of death, though the falling tree was the undisputed culprit. While falling trees, dubbed hazard trees by experts, are rare causes of fatalities, they remain an ever-present risk in forested areas, especially during storms. For Harry's family and friends, his sudden passing was devastating. Tributes poured in across social media, with loved ones remembering his adventurous spirit and boundless love for travel. Victor Mary, a close friend, reflected that Harry had traveled further than most people ever dream, and though his journey had come to an abrupt end, his legacy would live on in the hearts of everyone he touched. Harry's story is a sobering reminder that no matter how experienced or prepared we are, nature has its own unpredictable ways. His passing is a heartbreaking loss, but his passion for adventure will forever inspire those who dare to explore the world's most beautiful, yet unforgiving, landscapes. June 14, 2016, was supposed to be a magical evening at Disney World's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa in Orlando, Florida. The Graves family, visiting from Elkhorn, Nebraska, was soaking up the Disney magic. Among them was their adventurous 2-year-old son, Lane Thomas Graves, who was enjoying the warm night by the Seven Seas Lagoon with his parents, Matt and Melissa, and his big sister Ella. That night, Disney was screening Zootopia under the stars, and little Lane was having the time of his life, splashing in the shallow water near the shore. It was around 8:30 p.m., a time when the Florida alligators are most active. As Lane bent down near the water's edge, an alligator, estimated to be around 7 to 8 feet long, emerged from the lagoon. In a flash, the reptile lunged and grabbed Lane, mistaking him for an easy meal. Matt, standing just a few feet away, heard the splash and immediately sprang into action. Without hesitation, he rushed into the water, trying to pry his son from the gator's powerful jaws. He fought desperately, but the alligator was too strong, dragging Lane into deeper water and out of reach. It was every parent's worst nightmare unfolding in an instant. A massive search operation kicked off immediately. Disney staff, law enforcement, and dive teams worked through the night. After 17 grueling hours, Lane's body was found 6 feet underwater, about 15 yards from where he was taken. The medical examiner later confirmed his cause of death as drowning and traumatic injuries caused by the alligator. In the wake of the tragedy, Disney wasted no time making changes. They removed nearly 100 alligators from their properties, installed barriers around the lagoon, and put up new warning signs explicitly mentioning alligators. They also built a lighthouse memorial near the lagoon in honor of Lane. Meanwhile, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission investigated the incident and deemed it a predatory attack, noting that it occurred at dusk, prime hunting time for alligators. Although no swimming signs had been posted, they didn't warn guests about alligators. Shockingly, reports later revealed that some guests had even alerted Disney staff about a gator in the area before the attack, but no action was taken. Despite their unimaginable grief, Matt and Melissa Graves chose not to take legal action against Disney. Instead, they channeled their loss into something meaningful, establishing the Lane Thomas Foundation. The foundation helps families navigating pediatric organ transplants, a cause close to their hearts.